Legal experts respond to revelation. Trump officials' phones wiped after January 6th. Lawsuit filed against Alaska Airlines for discriminating against Muslim men. Premier League to prescribe which matches players can take the knee in. Fight against racism. For the first time, Iran raises possibility of building nuclear bomb. Indonesia's largest book fair returns after 2-year hiatus. From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hena Zuberi. Our top story tonight. Legal experts are weighing in on the revelation this week that the cell phones of top Trump administration Pentagon officials were wiped after January 6 insurrection. CNN reports the Defense Department wiped the phones of top Department of Defense and Army officials at the end of Donald Trump's term in office. They deleted texts from key witnesses to events surrounding the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, according to court filings. The discovery was made after the watchdog group, American Oversight, filed a Freedom of Information request against the Defense Department and the Army. These records were required to be preserved by law. On Tuesday, a constitutional amendment to revoke abortion rights in Kansas was defeated by a landslide vote. The result is energizing reproduction rights advocates who hope congressional Republicans will pay dearly in November's midterm elections. If the amendment passed, it would pave the way for state legislators to pass a comprehensive abortion ban. Such bans are proliferating in the wake of last June's U.S. Supreme Court's Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization ruling. The ruling voided half a century of constitutional abortion rights guaranteed by the landmark Roe v. Wade decision. U.S. President Joe Biden said Kansas voters sent a powerful signal that the American people will vote to preserve and protect their rights. Progressive U.S. lawmakers and activists also hailed Tuesday's results with an eye towards the midterms. The Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, has filed a discrimination lawsuit against Alaska Airlines on behalf of 2 black Muslim immigrant men. The men received discriminatory treatment by Alaska Airlines employees and management, it claims. The Washington State chapter of CAIR and the CAIR Legal Defense Fund announced the lawsuit's filing on Tuesday. In February 2020, colleagues Mohammed and Abu Bakr settled into first-class seats on an Alaska airline flight for a business trip out of Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. Both are bearded black Muslim Americans who are ethnically Sudanese and speak Arabic and English. Abu Bakr was texting in Arabic to a friend when another passenger saw him texting and complained to Alaskan Airlines staff. They were both then removed from the flight and subjected to additional security measures. Several organizations and mosques in France are criticizing an Interior Ministry decision to deport well-known Imam Hassan Iquisan. Iquisan is a preacher and member of the Union of Islamic Organizations of France. He faces expulsion after authorities refused to renew his residence permit. He's filed a case with the administrative court to halt the deportation procedure, which he says is established on baseless accusations. A hearing is expected to take place in the coming days. The heads of various organizations called for the rejection of the procedure they described as unfair. The French Jewish Union for Peace said state racism continues to discriminate against a section of the population under the guise of the law of separatism. For Indian Muslim dentist Lubna Amer, practicing her profession remains a dream. The 28-year-old from the city of Pune studied dentistry and practiced for a few years at a government college in the western Indian state of Maharashtra. In 2018, she started applying for a job at clinics across India through email and dropped off resumes in person at some clinics. She applied for jobs at nearly 24 places but got no response despite having very good credentials, Amir told Al Jazeera. Muslims make up nearly 14% of India's 1.35 billion population, but do not have the same representation in government or private sector jobs. Multiple government-appointed commissions have found the community is at the bottom amongst India's social groups in terms of education and employment. Premier League to prescribe which matches to take the knee, stressing fight against racism. Details after the break. Stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
Assalamu alaikum! Open up your eyes.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's your brother Zain Bika from South Africa. One of the first educational programs ever produced for Muslim children was the ever popular Adam's World series. The colorful and comical Muslim puppets stole the heart of a generation. Sound Vision will be releasing brand new episodes of Adam's World with the launch of a Adam's World app. Subscribers will enjoy new Adam's World episodes as they are released, as well as all the classic episodes of Adam's World. So visit adamsworldapp.com now to learn more, subscribe and enjoy new adventures of Adam and his friends. And let's keep helping tomorrow's Muslims today. Assalamu alaikum.
Adam's World. Believe me, there's a lot to see. Bismillah. Let's explore.
To stop this genocide, we need your help.
Welcome back. English Premier League football clubs will not take the knee before all matches. The league will have specific days to perform the protest during the 2022-23 season as part of showing unity against discrimination and racism. Players will take the knee at select matches to highlight ongoing anti-discrimination messages, the league said Wednesday. Club captains have reaffirmed their commitment to fighting racism and all forms of discrimination. The 2022-23 Premier League starts Friday with Crystal Palace facing Arsenal at London's Selhurst Park. Players will take the knee during the opening match round of the season and the Boxing Day fixtures after the conclusion of the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022. Noor Begum embarked on a 3-month pilgrimage to Mecca with her mother and husband in 1931. She pledged to write books and compose poetry for as long as she lives. Hers is one of the many female voices included in the book 3 Centuries of Travel Writing by Muslim Women, released Tuesday. It is a collection of lesser-known writings of Muslim women who traveled far from their homelands for pilgrimage, education, politics, or pleasure. Historic travelogues typically have been dominated by men, such as the legendary 14th century Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta. Battuta's writings made him world famous. Compiled by editors Siobhan Lambert Hurley, Daniel Makrowicz, and Sunil Sharma, The new book showcases writings from 45 Muslim women. The selection of writings covers 10 languages, including Arabic, Turkish, Urdu, Punjabi, Indonesian, and English. On Wednesday, Islamic Book Fair 2022 was held in Jakarta, Indonesia, after a 2-year break due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It is the biggest book fair in the world's largest Muslim country. The event lasts for 5 days at the Jakarta Convention Center, which hosts 20,000 to 30,000 visitors per day. This year's theme is Islamic literacy growing the nation's optimism, said Husni Kamil, an official with the book fair. Participation is being limited since this is the first post-pandemic book fair. Israeli forces razed a Palestinian home in the West Bank in the latest spate of demolitions in the occupied territory, a local official said Tuesday. Israeli soldiers raided the town of Sebastia in Nablus and razed the house, citing the lack of permit in Area C, Mayor Mohammed Azim said. He added that the house, built years ago, was inhabited by a family of 8. Israel widely uses the pretext of lack of construction permits to demolish Palestinian homes, especially in Area C in occupied West Bank. Under the 1995 Oslo Accords between Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, was divided into Areas A, B, and C. Area C constitutes around 60% of the West Bank. It is under Israel's administrative and security control until a final status agreement is reached with the Palestinians. Iranian officials have started talking publicly about the possibility of building a nuclear bomb. This is a shift from earlier policy. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei issued a fatwa, or religious ruling, against nuclear weapons in 2005. Since then, Iranian leaders have been adamant Tehran's nuclear program was strictly for civilian purposes. But the rhetoric has changed in recent weeks. Kamal Kharazi, a senior advisor to Khamenei, said on July 17th that the country was capable of making a nuclear weapon. However, he said that the decision has not yet been made. A July 29 video posted on a Telegram channel affiliated with the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps asks, when will Iran's sleeping nuclear bomb wake up? The channel claimed that the underground Fordow enrichment facility can produce enough highly enriched uranium for one nuclear weapon. A prominent Uyghur poet and associate professor was detained in 2017 as a threat to social stability. Ablet Abu Rashid Berki was sentenced to 13 years in prison on a separatism charge by the Chinese government, according to local police and a Uyghur source. Berki is serving time in Tamshuk prison, a detention facility located in Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps. The state-owned economic and paramilitary organization is situated in East Turkestan, or what the Chinese government calls the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. Since its founding in 1954, the Corps has built and administered several urban centers there. They're used mainly to resettle Han Chinese from the other parts of the country as part of a campaign of Sinicization. It also operates prisons and publicly traded companies. Coming up after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour, walk a mile in my shoes, walk a mile in my shoes.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad!
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
We are Justice for All. Headquartered in the heart of downtown Chicago, Justice for All is a global humanitarian initiative dedicated to raising awareness for human rights concerns impacting vulnerable minority groups. Our diverse team of staff and volunteers, led by Imam Malik Mujahid, work tirelessly to help Justice for All achieve their goals. We promote policies that protect religious freedom, address the root causes of mass displacement, and recognize the plight of refugees and forced migrants. Together, we can continue to stand up for justice. Justice for all.
Welcome back. To discuss the recent visit of U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan and the Chinese government response, let's go to Edward Ahmed Mitchell. Over to you, Edward.
Thank you, Hena. Greatly appreciated. And now we move to a discussion of the United States policy in relation to Taiwan and China. As many of you know, Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan just over the past few days, sparking a very angry reaction from the Chinese government. What does all this mean? What's the history in this region? What does it mean for U.S. policy going forward and the world? To discuss this, we are very happy to have our special guest, author James Bradley. Many of you know Mr. Bradley. He has been the author of several best-selling books focused on U.S. policy in the Pacific and Asia region, including The China Mirage, The Hidden History of American Disaster in Asia. And of course, you all would know him well for authoring Flags of Our Fathers, which was made into a film directed by Clint Eastwood some years ago. Mr. Bradley, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Good to be here.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having us, for joining us. So let's dive into the discussion, but I want to start by getting a little bit of history, a little bit of background. Can you tell us about the situation between Taiwan, China, the United States? How did this all come to be? Give us a bit of a history lesson.
Okay, we could do it in about 3 hours, or I'll try in just a few minutes.
Go for it.
Taiwan was an island out in the Pacific that was under Chinese influence. China was the largest country in Asia, and Taiwan is just about 100 miles away from China. So, these were back in the days before there were maps with definite lines. The Asia was not as legalistic as the West. So Taiwan was just always part of China. And then various explorers came out. The Portuguese claimed this island, and the Dutch claimed that island. But Beijing was just always looking like, they're putting up flags, but everyone knows Taiwan is part of China. And then in the 19th century, the United States started claiming Indian lands by claiming that the Indians were barbarians and that they could move them off the land for the more civilized. And an American diplomat, a general from the Civil War named General Legendre, went to China and said, you've got to get out there in Taiwan and beat up your barbarians there and claim Taiwan for China. Beijing said, what are you talking about? Everyone knows that Taiwan's part of China. So this diplomat, General Legendre, this American, went to Tokyo, and he became the first employee of the Japanese Foreign Service, and he helped Japan take Taiwan. So now you have a very difficult thing. Everybody knows that China is Taiwan's part of China, but now America and Japan changed the formula. Well, this was back in the days when Japan was the good Asian and China was the bad Asian. Let's go ahead in time, and we have a few things happen. And then Chiang Kai-shek takes over in China, and Japan is ruling Taiwan. We're into World War II now, and Taiwan is a Japanese base. Well, World War II ends, and guess what? America now has Taiwan. Well, America gets involved in the Chinese Civil War, and America supports China, the Chiang Kai-shek side, in the Chinese Civil War against Mao Zedong. Well, the Chinese people supported Mao Zedong. Chiang Kai-shek lost the Chinese Civil War in 1949. Well, Mao Zedong didn't have a navy. And the United States, post-World War II, had a big navy. So they said to Chiang Kai-shek, you don't have to surrender like other losers surrender. I mean, General Lee in the Civil War surrendered, but you don't have to surrender. Hey, we got this island over here called Taiwan, and you come and rule it, Chiang Kai-shek. So the American Navy took Chiang Kai-shek off the mainland, took all the gold of China, took all the artwork of the main museum, and it sailed over to Taiwan. Now, I'm of the generation that went to school in the United States in the 1950s and the 1960s. And we were taught there were two Chinas. There was a big bad China that we don't talk to on the mainland. They had 400, 500 million people at that time. But no. They're not the real China. We don't talk to them. This is the real China, this rock out in the Pacific we imagined. And that's what I was taught. This tiny little Taiwan was the real China. And the real Chinese were going to take over the mainland Chinese at some day. It was fanciful. It was stupid, but that's what the State Department held for many, many years. Well, in the Carter administration, we normalized relations with China. And China said, look, we want to talk to you about one thing. There's only one China. Look, America, there's only one China. There's not two Chinas, okay? And America agreed to the one China policy. And we also agreed not to stoke emotions in Taiwan regarding there being two Chinas. America agreed to one China. So this is what we're talking about when Nancy Pelosi goes over there. China is rightfully saying, hey, historically, Taiwan has been ours. You signed an agreement that there's one, with the one China policy, that there's one China. And Nancy, when the third highest ranking American goes out to Taiwan and talks about freedom and liberty and we're with you, sounds like two Chinas. Now, Nancy, you keep saying, oh, this is nothing new. The Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, went to Taiwan in 1997. Nancy and American media, you're forgetting something. Newt Gingrich did the right thing. He took a bipartisan bunch of folks from Washington on a plane, but he went to Beijing first. In other words, he paid homage to the central government of China in Beijing, hello Beijing, and on the way home, stopped in Taiwan. That's proper. That's acknowledging our commitments under the one China policy. What Nancy Pelosi did was insulting.
So, Mr. Bradley, thank you for that history of going back over a couple hundred years of Taiwan and China. So now, as you mentioned, present day, the Chinese government very upset about Speaker Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. She made it out. What is the Chinese government doing in response? I understand they are launching military drills all around Taiwan that have got the Taiwanese very upset, but they haven't, launched a direct attack or invasion of Taiwan or anything as of yet. Tell us a bit about how China's responding, and do you think a lot of people think that they plan to invade Taiwan at some point in the future? And there's concern that Speaker Pelosi's visit might speed that up. Do you think there's any weight to that they might act more quickly on their plans to attack Taiwan, if any, or do you think that they're willing to maintain the status quo for the foreseeable future?
From the Chinese point of view, there's no desire to attack. What they're saying is, hey, East and West Germany came together. North and South Vietnam came together. Why do we need a fight? Taiwan's part of China. Everyone can see that for hundreds of years. So we want to peacefully reunite with Taiwan. There's nobody that wants a fight here on the Chinese mainland side. So in America, all you hear is about military, invade. Well, China keeps saying we want to reunite peacefully. The military stuff comes from the politicians in Taiwan who just might be receiving some money from some large American companies. Gee, maybe those companies, maybe we need some more Lockheed equipment in Taiwan. And then maybe another Taiwanese politician says we need equipment from Raytheon. And how about some more missiles from the military industrial complex? That's what we need. So you're hearing from a slice of the Taiwan rulers, let's say, who are asking for munitions. And China's saying, quiet this down. Why are you giving munitions to this province that's part of China? Why are you stoking this militarism?
Would you say that it's very unlikely that the Taiwanese government, regardless of who leads it, would ever be willing to peacefully reunite and become part of China, given how different their cultures and their systems of government are? Do you think there is any room on the Taiwanese side for some sort of peaceful reunification? Because it seems if the China is led by the Communist Party dictatorship, Taiwan is a democratically elected government and more freedoms than China, it seems the Taiwanese people would not want to, for the most part, become part of China, especially given what's happening in Hong Kong and to Uyghur Muslims. Is there any scenario where one day these two countries unite in some sort of one country, two systems sort of scenario, or it is the only end result of this either status quo or war one day?
From the American media, that would seem to be the choices. That, how could Taiwan possibly reunite with this horrible dictatorship? The Lantana organization out of Europe just did a democracy perception index. This is not talking to egghead professors about democracy. This is interviewing thousands of people around the world, and they do it every year. What is your perception of democracy? In other words, there's a gap. America says, oh, we like democracy, but gee, our leaders are like going to Ukraine without consulting us. And so there's a gap between the democracy we want and the democracy we are getting. Well, who had the smallest gaps between the people saying we want democracy and this is where we perceive our democracy? Who had the smallest gaps in this latest worldwide Lantana survey? The two top ones were, okay, here it comes, China and Switzerland. So read the study. These are the Chinese people. The Chinese people are outrageously happy with their government. And I don't work for the Chinese government, but look at the various Western studies that say they're accurate year after year that show the satisfaction of the Chinese people with the central Chinese government. This is something that's never told. We see a riot in China. And we're told by the media, oh, there's a riot. The rulers are going to come and snuff them out and throw. No, the Beijing looks at a riot as like, oh, what's going on there? Why are those people rioting? There's a bank manager stealing money or there's a governor doing something wrong. Let's look into this. And they do look into this. No government is perfect because governments are ruled by people. But America's got to take a look at the reality of the thousands of years of history here and what is actually going on with China and the satisfaction of the Chinese people with their government. And let me talk about response right now. You asked me and I didn't respond. First of all, we don't know. It's
so
go ahead.
One, because we're almost out of time, I want to make sure I get two questions to you, and then you can encapsulate all in one answer. So number one, you told us a bit about your perspective on what the Chinese people feel. What do you think about what the Taiwanese people feel about, the idea, the prospect of rejoining China? Number two, you noted, a international survey, they might show the Chinese people report being satisfied with their government. I guess I'd push back and ask, is it ever possible to really know whether or not that's accurate without a vote taking place, where people have the right to vote for their leaders? And given that the Chinese government controls what people see, the media, the internet, given the censorship, is it impossible for the Chinese people to even really know fully what their government is doing to people in the country, Uyghurs and others? In other words, is it impossible for the Chinese people to really have a full understanding of what their government is doing, or to freely express what they think of the government? So to give me that perspective, what do you think the Chinese people are feeling? Do you really trust surveys about the Chinese people? And then as well as the response, hit me with everything.
Okay, but coming from that perspective, you could just say, well, how can you trust any survey in China because the Chinese people can't speak freely and there's censorship. There's tremendous censorship all over the world right now. And I hate to say it, in my country, I can name the number of people that I listen to on the internet regularly that now I've got to hunt them on their websites because they can't be seen. So in terms of China censoring, yes, but America is also censoring quite a bit. What do the Taiwanese think? I don't know, but I know that there's two sides, and one side is pro getting back with China, and the other one is anti. What are the influences of that anti-group? A lot of strong Washington connections and billions of dollars of machinery, of military machinery involved here. So in terms of, and in terms of trusting surveys about China, people say that to me. Well, how can you trust a survey in China? And I ask them, well, how many surveys have you read about Chinese public opinion? The Pew organization does surveys year after year, and we trust them when they do it in America, and then we don't trust them when they do it in China. Look at the methodologies. I didn't do these surveys, but there are a number of surveys that constantly show that the Chinese people are generally approved of their government. And doesn't this make sense? They're taking like 50 million people a year out of poverty and moving them up. I mean, go to China yourself. The first time I went to China, I thought, oh man, a black hole. I hope I don't get arrested, say something wrong. And when you go to China, if you're not involved in on the political side, there's a lot of smiles in China. Now, in terms of how China's going to react, it's very interesting. Everybody's focused on the missiles going up and the water splashing and the video of the Chinese military. Well, China just did something really, Chinese, really smart. You know what they did? They cut the sand exports to Taiwan. Folks, let's think for a second. Why is that important? Anyone know why? Can you guess? Why is sand so critical? This export of sand from China to Taiwan. I didn't get it at first either. Guess what Taiwan makes that we need? Semiconductors. Guess what you need to make semiconductors? Sand. So I don't know, America, if you want to continue punching China in the nose, maybe you don't need any semiconductors. America, you want to surround China and punch them in the nose and start a big war? Well, you've got to think about American troops in Okinawa being incinerated. Poof! Look at the map. There's 40,000 troops, I don't know the numbers, in South Korea. Hey, America, you want those American troops in Korea to just be vaporized? All those aircraft carriers we're sending out there. I'm pro-American. I'm for the American side, but we got to be realistic. China has missiles that can sink every one of those aircraft carriers within 30 minutes. This is not World War II. We're going to have you want to start a war with China? we're going to have thousands of dead Americans in these aircraft groups and tens of thousands of Americans dead on these various bases where we're trying to choke China. So this is serious. And again, I get back to, we are the ones that agreed back in the 1970s, there's one China. There's not two. China can count and wants America to live up to that one China policy.
Mr. Bradley, thank you for sharing your perspective. I think we're going to have to continue the conversation. Obviously, it's a very fraught issue. Many Taiwanese people concerned about the prospect of forcibly or willingly rejoining China, given the way it treats its people. And obviously, many Americans concerned about a democratic ally falling under the sway of China. And on the flip side, as you noted, many people concerned about a war, an unnecessary war that costs a lot of lives, and also about warmongering that could lead to an unnecessary war. So lots of perspectives on all sides. We thank you for sharing your perspective and look forward to having you back to continue the conversation. Thank you, Mr. Bradley.
Look forward to it.
Thank you. And we'll send it back to you, Hena.
Thank you so much, Edward. That's all from our Washington studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.